Hello everyone, it's great to be back. It's wonderful to be back. I'm so very sorry for being absent for, let me see, oh my god, 2 months. I just wanted to update those of you who were wondering what's been going on and where this channel will continue onwards from here. If you just want to get to the main subject of the video, then you can skip to the time on the screen right now. So after dealing with some schoolwork, health issues, and just all around lack of motivation, I've decided to instead just try and make videos on my own accord, with no schedule. These videos will be put to premiere days prior to the release in order to give you guys time to see its upcoming release. Because even after deciding to try and make videos every 2 weeks instead of every week early in this channel's lifetime, I still believe it's kind of an insane wish from myself, as some of these videos take immense effort out of me, and making sure they are relevant in like the current climate of whatever subject I'm talking about in the video is even more frustrating. So instead I'm just going to give the most time I can for every single video that I put out. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say on this subject. I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. How many science fiction films have you seen that aren't associated with space, aliens, or robots? Probably not much. That's because most of the films advertised to the mass consumer market are often only within those 3 genres. They're simple, bombastic, and oftentimes more fiction than science, at least nowadays. We usually never get a work that focuses more on the science whilst balancing out the fiction aspect. That's because science requires research, time, and effort, and well, isn't exactly that entertaining when we start getting into the more complex terminology. Now, I myself am no scientist. Please, I could hardly pass grade 11 chemistry. But one thing I can tell is when a film really makes you think philosophically, tests you psychologically, and uses its limited budget to the best of its ability. And boy oh boy, do I have a film right here, right now, that does all of those things and more. If you were to look it up, Chimera Strain has a score of 4.6 out of 10 on IMDb, awfully low. But if we look at another science fiction film that came out the same year, Pacific Rim Uprising, it has a,
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Now, poorly ranked films aren't the only reason I'm showing you this, because the way I actually found this film was by scavenging for films to watch on Rotten Tomatoes, and ended up seeing it from the corner of my eye, seeing that it had a critic score of 60% but a 93% audience score. Of course, this instantly caught my attention. However, the more I went into researching this film, I basically came out empty-handed. There's 0 notable video reviews of the film, it has no box office count anywhere, nor can you find an estimated budget of its production. But why? Why is this film that appears to be so loved by the people not being talked about anywhere, and why did I just now find out about it? Well, one of the reasons is likely that it basically only premiered at film festivals, as well as went into select theaters and then went straight to video on demand in March of 2019. And the other reason is that the promotional poster looks like it was made in Photoshop in 5 minutes, and likely was one of the reasons many didn't even watch it. I mean, honestly, they already had a fantastic poster, but decided to go with the most generic, incomprehensible one as their main form of selling the film. It also kind of won quite a lot of awards. I mean, look at this. Best Narrative Feature, Best Sci-Fi Feature, Best International Feature Film, Best Feature Film, and the list goes on. The film also has a pretty noteworthy cast, having Henry Ian Cusick, known for his roles in popular TV shows Lost and The 100, play the protagonist. As well as have Kathleen Quinlan, who played in Apollo 13, Event Horizon, play the mustache-twirling villainess. For an independent art house film, this is a pretty damn impressive casting. It's also the debut film of director Maurice Hames, I don't know how to say his name, who has a bachelor's degree from the VGTI School of Engineering of the University of Mumbai, and an MBA in finance from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He has enjoyed successful careers in mechanical fluid engineering, investment banking, and software entrepreneurship. Apparently, filmmaking was actually his 4th career choice, and he's especially fond of transhumanism and immortality. It's honestly very fascinating to find an artist who has a background behind science to not just make a science fiction film, but also make one that is somewhat accurate to real science. Now, that's enough on giving backstory to the film. It's time for the main course. For a film that's only an hour and 20 minutes, this is a very heavy film with a lot to unpack. The film's synopsis goes as such. A genius scientist named Quint is on the clock in finding the answer to immortality in order to save his sick wife and 2 children. While doing so, he is also haunted by both the idea of losing his family forever, his relationship with his former coworker, and having to deal with his insane employer. Most of the events that transpire are often out of order, and although there is a particular moment where I find this use of out-of-order scene composition extremely effective, it's often just meaningless and annoying most of the time. Like, we absolutely lose nothing if the scenes were in fact in order, but I guess its use was likely to show the chaotic state of the main character's mind, as well as his want to hold on to events that were from the past. Chimera Strain is a very complicated film, in both the way it's filmed as well as the way it tells its story. Even now, there's many scenes that make me wonder what they meant simply because of how the film often left scenes to play with no dialogue after a major plot point. It very much focuses on the morality of scientific research as well as the overall search of this immortality. And as I said before, the film is actually pretty accurate to real science, at least the bare-bone aspects such as stem cells and cryogenic sleep. Also, the actual method of trying to find the key to immortality is based on a real creature called the Teratopsis dohranii jellyfish, which in short is a biologically immortal jellyfish that can basically revert its transformation state in order to go on living forever. In fact, in the real world, this jellyfish has actually ended up leading scientists in trying to use their cells as a method of trying to renew damaged or dead tissue in human beings. And so the film balances out this scientific research extremely well with what I think is the best part of this film, the themes. And these themes include themes of life, when to let go of that life, and the search for answers. These themes are transgressed via the main character, by having him constantly battle his internal human side in the form of his comatose wife. He sees visions of her through the use of him taking one of 2 kinds of pills, one being blue and the other being red. When he takes the red pills, his wife pops up and judges and questions his often immoral actions while wearing, you guessed it, a red dress. Meaning, if we were to think that this false version of her is to be based on the real version, then she would have likely not have agreed, nor have allowed her husband to go this far if she was in his place. Quint taking the red pill represents his scientific side struggling against the inhuman actions he commits in the form of his ill wife, oftentimes even having entire conversations with her, which then lead to some pretty deep questions about humanity as a whole. Like, if we were supposed to be immortal, then why wouldn't we have been made as such? And if we were intended to be mortal, then we would have less curious minds. It also adds a pinch of religion, by having his false wife bring up the topic of God.
If God intended us to be immortal, we would have more durable bodies.
The film doesn't pick a side. It's not trying to disenchant and disregard religion as a whole, nor does it believe science is the key to solving all of our problems. In fact, the riskiness of Quint's science is explored through half of the film, as he tries to find a way to make sure he can both put his 2 kids into cryosleep, as well as make sure they wake up after it. The film shows that there's no easy way in making sure it's possible, as he has to use multiple versions of a golden retriever dog he's cloned in order to make sure the cryosleep works. And thus it's horrifying to see the death of innocent animals, but it also makes us say, oh well, I guess if it does save his 2 kids, then there's no other way and it needs to be done. This constant switch for our need to allow particular things Quint does shows just how risky science and weighing the value of someone's life really is. Prior, I said the film uses color quite a lot, and since I already spoke on what red means and its use in the overall film, then I guess I need to bring up the other pill and its color. Blue is best described by Quint's fake wife as the father side of Quint. It's more of his insecure side as a father who only wishes the best for his children. The film sometimes has blue be used as a form of manifesting his already cryo-frozen children in order to show Quint's downward spiral into insanity. An example of this may be this scene where Quint is seen playing with his kids. His children are seen to be wearing blue, but they are also not diegetically heard or even noticed when the camera is focused on the character Charlie. This scene is one of the best examples of the audience having to piece together the fact that the film was not in chronological order, as well as make us realize that the blue pills cause Quint to hallucinate images of his children. I only wish we had more of these well-shot scenes throughout the film. as his children are mostly sidelined in the second half. But there are still fantastic moments that use the color, such as the scene of Quint reminiscing of his children's innocence and adolescence right after he put them to sleep. The scene has him acting like an astronaut, a profession most children often wish to be, with a blue backlight illuminating him. Moments like this demonstrate incredible visual storytelling on the topic of what kind of man Quint is, his mental state, as well as the disturbing acts committed throughout, as having a single color, such as blue, means a particular set of events and character moments, which then allows us to imagine and broaden our understanding in a much more artistically creative way, rather than just having to follow a basic set of narrative instructions. But the film does suffer quite a bit from a weak villain, as well as a somewhat disappointing ending, as the ending of the film is out of nowhere and completely creates a disingenuous understanding of the character Charlie and who we thought she was. The majority of the film actually never really goes too much into her interests, nor her fascination with Quint himself. Therefore, you'd think she would play a much more supportive character that helps and roots for Quint through and through, whilst also trying to rekindle his ability to love. But nope, the film ends up having her become a selfish asshole that impregnates herself with Quint's wife's embryo. And she also kills his 2 children, his wife, as well as frames him for crimes he didn't even commit.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Look, I understand this ending of giving the main character nothing of what he wants, as it demonstrates the dangers of such experiments and the stakes of the situation he put himself into. However, the point of origin for such a conclusion is nonsensical. We never expected nor saw Charlie as a jealous individual that was capable of such atrocities, yet somehow she did them anyways. Furthermore, the main villain of the film, Masterson, although played remarkably by Kathleen Quinlan,
every chamber is custom.
You're the genius. Figure it out!
is quite ridiculous. She's kinda just there to act as a crazy boss who wishes for herself as well as her disfigured husband to become immortal. Like, I'd expect her to not rush the only person that can save her and her husband. Although I will give credit for the film for creating a very disturbing and eerie, secretive, abusive relationship that can be seen between Masterson and her husband through their dialogue.
I will atone for my deed, for what you and that woman made me do.
As it's then entirely visually represented by having her husband take a gun and kill her as well as himself at the end of the film. Meaning, although the film suffers from a weak conclusion and a poor main villain, its main themes and main character are what make it so compelling. All in all, this film is not a 4.6 out of 10, and it is most definitely better than this thing. It's a very minuscule project that I almost skipped out on, and luckily I didn't, as it offers so much more than the average Hollywood film does nowadays. It's disturbing, morally conflicting, well acted, beautifully shot, and will leave you thinking about scenes to the point of creating your own theories of what was actually happening in them. It's not a perfect film, but god damn it, I'd watch it 1,000 times over than ever have to watch Pacific Rim Uprising ever again. If you're interested in watching this film after my video, then I recommend you rent it for a mere $6 Canadian on YouTube. It's also free in the United States region of Amazon Prime Video. It's a very small independent film, and I highly recommend that you do support it if you are fond of smaller based movies and just want to give them a bit of support. But of course, at the end of the day, it's still your money and you do what you want with it. Personally, I think a small contribution can go a long way in the long run. But that is all for this video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and goodbye.